Sawubona Sihlalo.
Sanibona.
Ninjani? Ngiyaphila.
Khona nani? Colleagues, just those who are here already, we request that we keep our mics muted at all times so that we do not interfere with the system. Delegates were made aware of this. We just need to make sure that we adhere to that. We'll keep on explaining to the delegates as well. And our cameras as well. Those who have an authority to be using their cameras will be allowed to do so. Delegates of the Parliament, your cameras, please. Can we see you? I see Dwabe is already here. Can you turn on your camera?
Are we starting? So Chico Simon and Matt. Welcome to Chico. All these things. Yes, this then put my phone on silent. And then you're not making any noise because it's on, the volume is on. So please, silent the phone.
And to Togo, can you please turn off your microphone? Our sign language practitioner, please turn off your microphone. Thanks.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning, members.
Morning, Maggie.
Oh, morning, Francois. Morning, Honorable Pillay.
Morning. How are you?
Well, thanks. My God, are we early?
We were told not to speak. Morning, everyone. We were told not to speak to allow the ones that are going to be in the panel to be added.
Okay.
That's a seal from now.
Yeah, just to say that we are here. About sound. About any sound. When you're ready to change, look, when you're ready to change, I'll see you approaching and then, okay? Because I want to the sound. Well, that's why I want you to sit there so that. Use my huh?
Okay. All right, thanks. Okay, sure. Magdalena. Good morning, honorable members. Good morning, delegates to the Workers' Parliament. I'm advised that in the next 2 minutes, we are going live on KZN TV. So it means there are things that we will have to do and things that we will not have to do. If you understand live TV. So we're going to request that members, you are aware that this is a Workers' Parliament, so delegates to the Parliament, it's their Parliament. Most of us as members of the legislature who are here as observers, so we are not going to be able to make jokes because those jokes might be going out in public. So we will have to behave ourselves and allow the delegates to have their parliament without disruptions. I see some members are still coming through. I'm just waiting an indication that whether all our delegates are now connected so that we can then start with the proceedings. But official proceedings are starting at 10:30. Once more, we request that you keep your microphones on mute unless they are not to speak by the chair. And we will request that delegate of the Parliament, if they could open their videos so that we could see them. If they can just, I see those that I know that are here, but if they could just open their videos so that we can see them as well. Yes, Michael. Yes, sir. Hello. Yes, sir. Okay. Yeah. All right.
So we conference call not chair. But in the countdown. No. All right. You beg a fancy for. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Manel. Hello, Manel. Yes, Devon. Yes, Baba. No, I'm not sure we are it's either in the camera I said you were actually the network Kaiko. So we when the phone is the router, so but end the call is a bit clear. No, before I will call the Israelis and the hand to give the phone there. That's because if they are taking money, I can't have every call. Sir,
Yes. No, but I'm on new computer. I'm actually live on my Microsoft computer. This I just took a call.
Yeah, but there's two.
Amen.
Good morning again, colleagues and honorable members. Before we proceed, I just want to get an indication. Is KwaZulu here?
Yes, KwaZulu is here, Chairperson.
May I get an indication if Fedusa is here?
Chairperson Fedusa is also here. Good morning.
Yes, Fedusa is here.
Thank you. May I get an indication if Nagtu is here?
Good morning, Chairperson. Nagtu is here.
Thank you very much, honorable members and honorable delegates to the KwaZulu-Natal 2020 Workers Parliament. Memela?
Yes,
Mr. Memela, is
yes,
everyone that is expected to this meeting here?
most of them were just battling with 2 or 3 delegates, Chairperson, but the large number, they are already on board.
So I suggest we proceed with our meeting then.
Yes, because all the leaders of the federations are here. It's just that we still don't have a full complement in terms of our delegation, but ICT is working on them. I'm sure by the time we reach 10:30, we will have everyone on board. Thanks, Chairperson.
The expected speakers are here.
That's correct, Chairperson. I'm advised that the Premier is here. I'm advised that Department of Labour is here, as well as the HOD for HI is also here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Memela. Before we start, may I request that all of us who are here, we observe a moment of silence just to remember all the workers who unfortunately have passed on because of the coronavirus. So just a moment of silence, we can then start and proceed with our meeting. May their souls rest in peace. Thank you again. My name is Sfiso Sonjika. I'm the chairperson of Public Participation and Petitions Standing Committee of the Legislature. I've been asked to chair or program direct this Workers' Parliament. I'm just going to go again just to indicate to the honorable members that you are observers in this parliament. It's Workers' Parliament, so members know, so it's a normal Workers' Parliament. You will then have to remain as observers so that we do not interrupt the Workers' Parliament or we do not interrupt the workers. Number 2, there are times that have been agreed upon, as you are, as delegates will be aware, that this is streamed live both on social networks and on TV, KZN TV to be exact. So there will be times that we'll have to adhere to. So I will request that the speakers, they will have been informed of their times. So you do not want me to intervene if I think you are taking longer than agreed. I'm normally a very nice person when it comes to time, but I'm also under constraint. So we're going to be a bit strict with time so that the speakers do not take time away from the delegates of the parliament. But also, we need to indicate that the public, be it workers, are going to participate one way or another because it's live. There is a WhatsApp number that they are going to be sending through questions. So that on its own may eat time. So we're going to have to be really be straight with time. Now, we request again that if you are not given an opportunity to speak, make sure that your mic is on mute so that it doesn't interfere with those that are speaking. I'm going to briefly indicate that we are not going to introduce everyone by name, except to say that they are leaders of the delegates. They are leaders from KwaZulu-Natal, they are leaders from Fedusa, and they are leaders from Natu. And as we go along, as they will be speaking, we'll then indicate who's then speaking on behalf of that particular federation. Colleagues will be aware that it's also business unusual. We are meeting in this format for the first time. For some people, it's not the first time, but it's a first in the country. We are actually the first as KZN legislature to actually hold the Workers' Parliament in this format. So it's a first for the country, and we would like to thank this leadership of the Speaker, Honourable Boyce, who made it possible for us to be able to continue with the Workers' Parliament, be it that we are not meeting with each other physically as we would normally have done if things were different. So I'm just going to indicate that in this meeting we have Honourable Speaker, we have Honourable Deputy Speaker, Honourable Ndobe, but we also have Honourable Premier. Welcome, Honourable Premier. I'm made aware that you are here. I've seen some MECs as well. Would like to welcome them. I saw earlier on Honourable Pillay. If I've missed other MECs that are already here, we are welcome. We also have I see almost all the MPLs. I might be wrong, but welcome, honourable members, and we would like to take time to thank you for availing yourself for this important meeting calendar of our legislature. We are aware that last year the Workers' Parliament did not sit. So with the leadership of the federations and leadership by the Speaker, it was agreed that this year we will continue with our Parliament, the Workers' Parliament, and then there were meetings that agreed about the format. I'm not going to waste time because mine is to really first state the speakers. I'm not the speaker myself here. So I'm going to ask Honourable Speaker, Honourable N. Boise, to give us her address and basically take us through of the role of the legislature and accountability on the Workers' Parliament. Honourable Speaker, may you take the floor, please.
Program Director, Honorable Sonjika, the Honorable Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Mhlonishwa Uzigalala, the Deputy Speaker of the Legislature KwaZulu-Natal, Usiwa in absentia, the Chief Whip and the Deputy Chief Whip of the Legislature, the Chair of Chairs and the Deputy Chair of Chairs, Leader of Government Business, the Leader of the Official Opposition, Honorable Hlabisa, and all party leaders to the Legislature of KwaZulu-Natal, members of the Provincial Executive Council and members of the KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Legislature, my colleagues, speakers of other legislatures that are connecting with us. I know that Limpopo is already connected with us. Secretary of the Legislature and your team, heads of departments in our province, delegates, and leaders of worker federations in the province. Ladies and gentlemen, and all our viewers on the different platforms, receive our greetings as KwaZulu-Natal Legislature. Program Director, it is our singular honor to welcome all of you to our first ever chapter of the Virtual Workers Parliament as the Legislature of KwaZulu-Natal. As part of our public involvement initiatives, as the legislature, we have decided to hold Workers' Parliament annually throughout the years. For the year 2019, we couldn't hold it due to elections that took place in May and followed by the setting up of the legislature, the new legislature of the term, which did not allow us to be able to finish our work on time. This year, again, we had planned to hold our Workers' Parliament in Mkungundlovu district, but owing to the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have to reconsider and change our schedule and hold this session today virtually and remotely. Of course, it was not an easy decision to come to, but Program Director, we must thank the participation of our federations, which are the stakeholders in this Parliament, the participation of the party leaders in ensuring that whatever the program committee has decided is made a reality. We know that when in the month of March, early March, the infections started to increase. In fact, we were the province that in the Republic was the first to have a positive case. The president and the government started to put measures in place to protect us as the citizens of the country. That led, of course, to what is now historic, the lockdown that started at the end of March at level 5, and we are currently in a level 4 lockdown, which started on the 1st of May. And that was clear that we could not hold a physical workers' parliament. But that did not change the fact that May is a month dedicated to workers. And we had to sit down with the workers and deliberate on issues that affect the workers. This also posed a new challenge for us as an institution. But this new challenge that was posed to us was made exciting by the possibility that all our stakeholders were willing to travel and take this journey with us. The cooperation that we received from all members of the legislature across the political party spectrum, and as well as the commitment to create a truly activist legislature by the federations who represented the workers of our province, made this journey a worthy and easy journey to embark on. This commitment by our workers had assisted us avert not having any activity directed to the workers yet again. But it also afforded us as a legislature with an opportunity to reach out to the workers at the cold face of COVID-19, providing a necessary and relentless wall protecting our citizens from the spread of the pandemic. We acknowledge and applaud the role played by the frontline essential workers who on a daily basis sacrifice themselves as a protective wall between the rapidly spreading virus. This is a cadet of workers who are facing different battles from those that were faced by Cecilia Makiwane, a nurse back in the early 1900s in the Eastern Cape. Cecilia Makiwane was not only amongst the first Black cadet of nurses who qualified, but she also succeeded to be a role model to the rest of the many nurses of her generation and those that came after her. So today, being the International Nurses Day, we want to pay homage to all of our nurses who, together with the rest of the essential workers and other professional healthcare workers, are at the forefront of the battle of COVID-19. Cecilia Makiwane and other healthcare workers of the time, amongst the African pioneers in their chosen careers, who had to provide the healthcare during an era that medical technology was not as advanced as it is today. On the other hand, the healthcare professionals of today and other essential services workers are providing the same services in an era of advanced medical technology. Yet, the necessary vaccine or cure for the virus had not been found. And they still continue to face challenges. Whilst the likes of Cecilia Makiwane faced the challenge of inequality, also steel workers face the challenge of inequality in the workplace. The likes of Cecilia Makiwane also faced the racial discrimination and colonization. But currently the workers do not face a colonization because we are living in a democratic era. But of course, there are new challenges. Challenges in the workplace that are faced daily. Amongst them, there is the inadequate personal protective equipment provision. Regardless of the challenges that are faced daily, today we want to celebrate the nurses of our lifetime. We want to say to you, like the nightingale of the old times, keep on the torch burning so that we are protected. We celebrate and say, let us all honor the nurses on this day of the International Nurses Day, which is a day we celebrate them, but which in KwaZulu-Natal, we are celebrating all of our workers, the people that are protecting us and giving us services every day. It is for the aforesaid reason that the legislature, as a legislature, we continue to value the dedication of workers, because regardless of how bleak our today may seem to be, we live with a greater hope of a much better tomorrow because of the dedication of all our workers, especially those currently providing essential services. Indeed, when we are standing tall, you must know that the workers are amongst the giants on whose shoulders we're standing tall on. Program Director, Honorable Premier, and the delegates, the effect of the pandemic will be far-reaching, especially in the economy, as it was put to a standstill in order to curb the rapid spread of the virus. This has resulted in current and impending job losses in other sectors. Of course, whilst we might think that the job losses are already here, economists still predict that the effect will still be felt by the economy long after this pandemic is controlled. So we need to have a foresight of trying to prepare ourselves for the economy that will come after this. It is on this background then that we ensured that we do convene the 2020 Virtual Workers Parliament. And we do not only convene it, we convene it under the theme, I quote, economic shocks of COVID-19, its far-reaching impact on the labor market, workers feeling the pinch. We want to dedicate it to the workers and also the economy. This year's Workers' Parliament is going to offer a platform for our labor federations, government, and the legislators to explore measures and means to mitigate the impact of COVID-19, especially on workers who are the backbone of our nation's resilient fight against the pandemic, and as well on our own economy as a country. Because if we do not have an economy that can survive post the COVID-19, it means that the development of South Africa will be brought to a standstill. Already, as a country, we are having many challenges on the economic front. Today's sitting is not only historic, but it is also fundamentally important, because as an activist, people-centered legislature, we will continue to create interactive platforms that enable us to listen to the workers' concerns, while also affording government departments the opportunity to report back on the progress made on the implementation of the resolutions of previous Workers' Parliament. If we do not afford or create a platform for this positive engagement, it will mean that our work as an oversight arm is in futility. And this Workers' Parliament and other sectoral parliaments afford us as a legislature an opportunity to do that. But today is dedicated directly to interactions that relate to workers and also to the economy by the government departments that are here. But also on behalf of government, having the Premier providing the progress on resolutions that have passed so that we are aware and we are able to access and determine. After we have sat here, we don't want to make this a talk show. We want to ensure that it is implementable, but above all, we are able to exercise our oversight as different portfolio committees. We will continue to consult with all our stakeholders to ensure that this is made a reality. In conclusion, Program Director and Honorable Premier, delegates, participants, members of the legislature, we would also like to share with you that this is not the only program that the KwaZulu-Natal legislature is going to hold or is having planned for the Workers' Month. As part of the Speaker's Social Responsibility Program, we are engaging with stakeholders on interventions, direct interventions to be made for workers during this time, where some have had to endure salary cuts or job losses. The legislature is not a service delivery institution. We deal with oversight, but through the social responsibility program, we can make necessary interventions, and we will make those interventions based on the needs that we will have analyzed working with the stakeholders that are part of us in doing this. The legislature has continued to function even during lockdown through employing different and innovative working strategies to ensure that our constitutional mandate continues to be carried out without any compromise. We will not miss any positive opportunity given to us by this bleak reality of the pandemic. For instance, this has accelerated our vision to move the legislature to not only being a paperless institution, but to a fully e-parliament business operative institution. We will move slowly but surely to a new defined working environment as the legislature of KwaZulu-Natal. Program Director and the participants, members of KwaZulu-Natal legislature, the guests, allow us to officially open the 2020 Virtual Workers' Parliament and wish all our federations productive deliberations. Nothing, I want to repeat, nothing will ever beat the might of workers united through their diverse unions and focused on a fight for ideals of those they represent, the workers on the shop floor, the workers on the street, the workers retrenched at home, but above all, the workers in the protection and healthcare services at the front line of the COVID-19. Have a great Workers' Parliament. Thank you, Program Director.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. We really appreciate your kind words in a difficult situation. Workers find themselves were indeed inspired by your commitment as the head of the legislature to work with the federations to see that how can we ease the plight of the workers. And again, I would like to welcome honorable members who might have joined us whilst when we had started. I just want to check if we have the sign language interpreter. Can you indicate your presence and stay in the screen? Okay. We thank you very much. I just want to check as well, is Baba Umdlalose from COSATU is with us now?
Yes, I'm here, sir.
Thank you very much, Baba Umjalos. We just want to thank you again, Speaker, and we hope we'll make mistakes because this is the first of its kind, but we still plead with the participants that we try and work together and minimize the mistakes that might be there. So I'm not going to waste time because we need to get to where the federations speak to us and then raise their issues especially with our government. And we appreciate your presence, Honorable Kuzeni, so that you are able to then lead your government with the solutions that the workers will need. Can I then therefore ask, I know your programs might be saying that is Miss Kukukoma, but it's not going to be. We're going to request Mr. S. Nkosi from the Department of Employment and Labor to speak to us on the issue of the insurance fund, UIF, so that it is also, we know that every day this issue is explained, but we know that it's one area that is affecting workers terribly because some are applying or some are not applying because they are not getting proper information. We have therefore agreed with the federations that we'll get somebody from the department to come to talk on this issue, because with this COVID-19 situation, it has become necessary that our people understand exactly what are their rights when it comes to the application and receiving the UIF. So without wasting time, may I request that Mr. Nkosi from the department is able then to do a presentation. And I'm suggesting to the delegates that you take notes. You take notes from what the speaker has said. You take notes from what Mr. Nkosi is going to say, so that when the time is right, we are then able to engage with all the presentations without. So we're not going to stop. As soon as they finish, we can then engage. So delegates, just take notes. The presentations will all be made, and then we'll proceed with the program. Abum Pazima, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Program Director, and good morning to everyone, all protocol observed. My name is Mr. Nkosi from the Office of the Commissioner, UIF Commissioner, and we'll be just doing this brief presentation. I'm not sure if the presentation will be flight on the screen, or should I just continue?
I suggest you continue, Babunkosi. Maybe the technical people will be showing us whether they are able to put it on the screen.
Okay. Thank you very much. On the 26th of March 2020, the Minister of Employment and Labor issued a directive. In that directive, it was the creation of a disaster benefit. That disaster benefit was also creating a benefit what we call COVID-19 plus, where employers now will be able to apply on behalf of their employees, apply for the short-term relief during this time or during this difficult time, especially the lockdown. However, as time goes on, the minister amended the initial or the original directive to ensure that all employees have access to these benefits. What happened then, as per the slide 4, although we have amended the slide 4 of the presentation, as of today, as we are speaking to you now, we have received 223,905 applications to date. However, out of that total, we have found that 65,000 of those applications, some of the employees were not declared on our database, which then becomes difficult for us to process those applications. However, we managed to process the number of applications, which is 156,000, which was processed and paid. Now, when we come to payment, and then which is the next slide, slide number 5, what happens there in terms of the payments? As of today, we have paid 11 billion to all the workers. However, on slide number 5, we're just indicating that we are also in this disaster benefit catering for domestic workers. For domestic workers, we have paid the amount of 42 million up to date, benefiting 10,000 domestic workers. Now, if we then combine, okay, we can continue to slide number 6. Slide number 6, the next one. Okay, on slide number 6, that's why we are indicating that to date we have paid on this benefit that was created by the minister, we have paid 11 billion. However, there are some benefits, individual benefits that you get under your normal claim site or application process. Because you will find that due to COVID or due to lockdown, some companies have closed down totally. Now, those employees will individually come to us and say, I would like to apply for my benefit. Hence, then, if you add the two application processes, the normal or individual and also the COVID-19 claims, it comes to 12 billion that we've paid so far up to date. And then on the next slide, which is the slide number 7, here we are just indicating, because at the start of the directives, when the minister was issuing those directives, we also entered into agreements with some of the bargaining councils. And these are the bargaining councils that we've paid so far. And one of them is the KZN Clothing Industry Bargaining Council. These that we've paid so far. However, within our 11 billion that we've paid, some companies that we've paid also belongs to other bargaining councils. Now, on the next slide, which is slide number 8, it talks to the provinces. We're now segmenting this application per province. Now, I'll just zoom in specifically to KZN. Now, KwaZulu-Natal, we have paid a total number of 25,000 employers who applied. Those employers have applied to us, and we have approved, and we have paid them. So 25,000 we have paid to KZN. But when you look at holistical view of this graph, you will see that Gauteng is obviously number 1, followed by the Western Cape. Then KZN or KwaZulu-Natal is third in position in terms of application we've received and application that we've paid. Now, on the next slide, we are just indicating now in terms of the sectors that we've paid, or the sectors that were worst affected by the COVID-19. Specifically on page 10, or slide 10, that's why we're indicating the sector that has applied, or the sector that were was highly affected by this COVID-19. That sector is personal services. Personal services includes your restaurants, your cafe, your advertising agents, your barber and beauty shops, and so forth. Those are the ones that were really affected, and they are the ones that are coming to us requesting these funds. And we are dispersing these funds to them, and we are paying employees that are affected or are associated with this sector. The second sector that is there, that is highly affected, is trade. And when we are talking about trade sector, we're talking about your fish, poultry, and computer and electrical appliances sector. That is the second affected sector. Also, which we've also paid, they've submitted the applications, we paid them, and 37,000 applications were paid on that one. And the last one is the professional and educational services, or the third one that was worstly affected. Others, yes, they are there, and they were also affected, but those three for us are the top 3 that were affected by the COVID-19. If you continue then, Program Director, you'll see that on the next slide, we're just indicating now measures that we've taken for us to able to make this process or the application process easier and convenient. We are engaging SARS, where we are talking to SARS to say they need to match for us. Because remember that, as I indicated earlier, when we receive these applications, some employers have not done their work, meaning they have not declared their employees. So you find that their employees are not on our database. Now, for us, one of the requirements was that we wouldn't pay. That is due to a fraud that we might, fraudulent cases that we might receive. So what we've done, we went to SARS and you say, SARS, some employers are paying to you directly. Can you please check for us or confirm for us whether this employee is associated with this employer? And they did, and SARS came back to us and they confirmed. And last week we paid those employees. 87% of these employees were confirmed by SARS, which was an extra measure that we've taken to ensure that employees receive this benefit. So SARS, they've done that for us. Now with the Banking Association again, we've met with them. Now you'll find that sometimes when we pay to these employers, some of these banking details are incorrect, or some of these bank accounts, they've been frozen for some whatever reason. So we were actually then engaging with Banking Association to say, how can we make this process easier? So Banking Association will validate these accounts and also to ease some of their controls that they do have, so that these amounts or these funds will able to get through to the employers' bank accounts, initially go through to the employees' bank accounts. For now, Chair, I'll just pause there and take this report as read, because other stats is just for information to indicate how much have we paid per province in terms of the daily processing of the claims. Thank you very much, Program Director.
I like to thank you again, Mr. Nkosi, and for this thorough and good presentation. Workers will engage with it when the time comes. I'm now going to request the acting head of Department of Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs in our province of KwaZulu-Natal to do a presentation on job losses and retrenchments. If he could talk to us in terms of what government's plan are in this economic climate. I'm going to allow you, Dwabe, to make your own presentation, and then after that we then go back to delegates to engage with all the presentations. Dwabe.
Honorable Chairperson, members, Honorable Premier, Speaker and Deputy Speaker, Chief Whips, MECs, leaders of the Workers' Federations, colleagues and delegates, I greet you all. If I can request also for the technical team to assist me to flight the presentation, but to indicate that we have submitted the presentation, but because I summarize basically the presentation as I go. Honorable members, if you can allow me. We start by indicating that the COVID-19 pandemic, it really came at a time where the economy of our country was battered really far as France. We will know that before this pandemic, we were confronted with the challenges globally of trade wars, affecting some of our exports like your steel and aluminum. We had an issue with the rating agencies downgrading us, the rising unemployment, the energy crisis, the declining imports and the increased imports of finished goods, and a number of businesses finding themselves in distress, and also illicit goods that we were beginning to see in our country. And from the labor front, we were observing the casualization of labor, the utilization of immigrant, the retrenchments and the unfisals that were still there. Already there are estimates that are done by several analysts in terms of the impact of this pandemic in terms of our economy. The Reserve Bank in particular are projecting a 6.1% decline in terms of our economy. I must quicken to indicate at this stage that these are projections and estimates. We are busy now. It's too early to actually quantify the job losses, the retrenchments that are going to take place. So there is a work that I'm going to talk about that will talk to that. But the projections in terms of unemployment is that it's going to surge to about 30% in the country and 27% in KwaZulu-Natal. And we are also really expecting the employment levels to fall in formal economy, in tourism and manufacturing sectors. But we expect the gain in the informal sectors of the economy. We indicate that there are a number of interventions that have been put in place by both the national and provincial government to try and retain jobs and create jobs, and I'm going to talk to those in my subsequent slides. Moving to the lockdown level, we all know now that we are in level 4, where certain sectors of the economy are opened, but the approach of government approach is that let us put people first. Let's put the lives of the people, the lives of the workers before the profits. We know there is a concern from business in particular to open the approach in terms of how we are doing it. We believe it's the correct one. That has been announced. The 500 billion package to support the socio-economic different relief measures, which I'm not going to talk about in this slide in detail. Basically, in this slide, what I want to indicate, the approach of both the national and provincial government is that for us really to survive the current situation that we are in, we need a new social compact amongst all the role players, business, labor, community, and government, to restructure the economy and achieve the inclusive growth. And in all the work that we are doing, we have been doing it in partnership with our social partners. Then I move to the slides where we indicated a high level in terms of all the sectors of the economy under level 4 lockdown that are allowed to operate. Some of them are allowed to operate 100%, like your agricultural sector, manufacturing, some are 100%, some are 50%, some are 30%. So it's this cautious approach that I'm talking about, saying at different sectors that can start to operate. Then we move to the slide where we highlight in terms of sectoral labor intensities. Because in deep economic recessions, what we are seeing is that the sectors that tend to shed more jobs are those that are relatively more labor intensive. And the labor intensive industries, to control costs during recessions, they start by laying off workers. That's why in our analysis of the sectors that we need to support in order to retain jobs, we are tracking those sectors. And in that slide, we indicate, you can see that the community services, it's your labor intensive sector, followed by the trade sector, as you have seen with the previous presentation, and the manufacturing sectors and so forth. The next slide, basically we detailed in terms of those sectors, which are those sectors that are key labor intensive. You will see that textile, clothing and leather goods, it's leading in terms of being the labor intensive sector in the country, followed by your public administration and also of the metal machinery and households and the transport sectors. They are quite key. The reason why we are showing this is because in our analysis of interventions in terms of what we want to do, we need to be able to zoom into these sectors that are going to give us more jobs. Let's retain and let's expand in those. So I think basically we are indicating in terms of those sectors I've spoken about. I'll move straight into saying what we have done. We have now gone back to 2009 during the financial crisis to look at which sectors were mostly affected by the global financial crisis. And you can see that this actually confirms that it's those sectors that are labor intensive, your trade, your hotel, were even affected in 2009. The same as the changes in employment in 2009, you can see that the trade was mostly affected, the manufacturing sector and agriculture and so forth. This was just for us because it's too early to quantify, but we said let's go back to 2009 when we had a crisis to see which sectors were affected and so forth. And note that COVID is actually broad-based because all and so forth. We've also looked in terms of the country's contribution, in terms of the GDP, in terms of which ones are looking the most, and you can see then that those are the sectors that we really need to zoom on, because that in our sector, your beverage is one of the key sectors that we need to be looking at and focusing more energy. Your construction sector is very key, and so forth. And then there's a slide on the sectoral employment. There, when we are looking in terms of the sectors and their contribution to employment, in terms of which are the sectors that are giving us how many workers are employed in each sector. And in this slide, we've also indicated that with level 4, if we say 150%, how many then of those workers are actually allowed to operate? We then move to the slide on sectors as the province, through the provincial growth and development strategy. Those are the sectors that we have identified: clothing and forest, pharmaceutical, mineral beneficiations, tourism, creative, marine manufacturing, and associated safety. Sectors we identified cost intensive because of their contribution to GDP, not just TAMSAC, but it's based on the analysis assisting us with our socio-economic challenges. The next slide, expected sector to be highly affected by the COVID-19. Which ones are those? We've identified tourism, restaurants, acquiring, wholesale and retail. It's going to be affected mainly in horticulture because it was allowed to operate even under level 5 lockdown. Your fish chemicals, your and there are those that are going moderately affected, as indicated there. We move to government policy measures. Basically, in terms of the government strategies, we are looking at economic response and the micro at the level of a local municipal level that is being done to in particular. Seen around the monetary policy that the Reserve Bank has cutting the repo rate 0.25 between January and April 2020. If that more can still in terms of this, we believe that they've still been they can cut more in terms of doing this. There is a talk about quantitative easing approaches, the printing of money, but we are quick to indicate that what is going to help us is the economy actually being productive that will assist in the. Under fiscal policy, there are a number of interventions we are adopting and increased structure spending. Already the talk about earlier on announced by the president it's going to talk to this, the industrial stabilization measure to stimulate the aggregate demand. But we are indicating that as we are embarking on this, our government revenue one of the area we've identified is the red tape. Said outpacing some of the infrastructure program is normally caused by the red tape related to some of our own policies and legislation. And this is also affecting some of the SMMEs, the informal economy, where people are asked to policies that some of them were even formulated during the apartheid time. We are saying we need to cut down the red tape if we have to deal with the challenges we are facing and create jobs and retain them and so forth. Of infrastructure, that the infrastructure program, we highlight some of the programs that could be pursued, the ports, the N3 corridor upgrade and the provincial roads, that these are some of the infrastructure programs that are going to help us in the short term and the medium term, and also the private sector projects. I will talk about some of them. Most of them are in our investment booklet that we have submitted to the president in order to create the jobs. So we are saying, even as we emerge out of this, we really need to focus on this. The issue of trade and import, we're saying it remains key. And now it's the opportunity to start looking at the regional integration arrangement. We can use the Africa Free Trade Agreement to start increasing the trade with the SADC, with the Africa, not just be looking in Europe and countries outside of Europe. The same as moving to the issue of localization in the interest of time. What we've done now as the we have said it's going to be important localizing our economy as really the supply are the nation will have to focus on feeding their own and using the local production. Over reliance on imports has seen the shortages of some of the products in protection equipment. So we select certain priority sectors, identify projects that will turnaround time. Let's say do import substitution, identify those areas where we can start localizing. In the subsequent slide, which I'm not going to dwell much in the interest of time, identified per each sector in agriculture, which are the products that we think we can and producing them there. Most of those products we are currently importing. The same agro-processing, clothing and textile, pharmaceutical, mining, green industries and maritime. We identify each one that size that are currently doing. In the fourth industrial revolution, innovation is going to be important. Our meeting today indicates to expedite the rolling out of infrastructure out the province. Going to be the new normal. I think let us be very clear. That's why even in our economic, but we are talking about the economic recovery strategy. Then the other key sector is that one of the informal sector. We are saying it's going to be important that we focus on that sector. It's going to be key and critical. Let's put in place better easy for this sector to operate and thrive. We'll spark where we'll refurbish them, make card machines for people to swipe, give them enough stock so that people are not into town to boxer shop of the ground. The money is going to within the rural communities and the economies. And also the issuing of permits rather than complicated business licenses. It's something that we need to look. The subsequent slide, we're looking at some of the interventions. The days for our growth fund and data. That we have implemented. In conclusion, Chairperson, looking at the time, we are highlighting for you some of the job creation that we have identified, because the jobs are not going to come from the thin air, but they need to come from tangible projects. And those are the job creation projects. I'm not going to each and every them, but we indicate job where it is, the number of jobs that is going to create, and the value. So we've done this exercise throughout the whole ATIA family and the provincial government, where we are beginning to indicate to you jobs we think they're going to come from. And in conclusion, Chairperson, we are really we need to minimize job losses in the labor-intensive sectors, and I've spoken. We need to support localization of value chains where possible. We need to start infrastructure projects, promote business development and entrepreneurship through ensuring access to relief funds, assist these relief measures. Already, our one-stop shop center is doing that free of charge. And also, let's minimize the risk of emission in cases by making sure that the businesses, they adhere to this. Our business inspection work, it goes out and make sure that the businesses are adhering to the regulations, social distancing. They are not putting the life of the work. And then we are busy, Chairperson, finalizing the COVID-19 economic recovery for KwaZulu-Natal, working with all the social partners to make this possible. And we will be presenting this to various structures to make sure that we come up with a plan as we did in 2009, where we had the job summit, doing something and present it and make sure that it's helping to deal us with the challenges. I thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Babu Mkhize, for your presentation. And I know that some of these presentations were shared as well with the delegates. Now, what's going to happen, honorable delegates, is that we are going to allow the questions basically to the presenters. Babu Nkosi no Babu Mkhize, but obviously won't stop if there are issues that are related to what Honorable Speaker spoke about when she opened this Workers' Parliament. We're going to allow that. After that, leaders of the federations will make their own statements before we allow the Premier to come in. So the questions might be not necessarily from the delegates who are with us here, because in their platforms, there's a WhatsApp platform that was created. There are also social networks. I'm told that Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, questions will probably be accepted from there. But they are in our team, there are people who are taking those questions. So they will be flighting those questions through so that then they are answered. So let me allow delegates who are with us here to make to send questions through to the speakers that have spoken so far. Honorable Speaker, Mr. Nkosi and Mr. Mkhize, so that we then I have time for that, so that when I stop them, you don't fight with me. They are all timed, so that we also, because we know that especially the executive as led by Honorable Zigalala, have so much on their plate in terms of dealing and fighting with this virus. So we had agreed on exact time that we will have to finish, so that we free Honorable Speaker and the executive to continue helping us fight this coronavirus. So the floor is open for questions. I'm going to go to federations will decide how they want to take it. I'm just going to call a federation. I know that there are leaders in the federations, and I know that they are still going to be making their statements as leaders of the federations. but then they will decide who then pose a question if they want to. So I'm going to just call the federation's name instead of calling the leader of the federation. Do we have Natu want to say and ask a question to the presenters that have already presented? Natu?
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning again to everyone. Naktu's question will be directed to Department of Labor and Employment. Mr. Nkosi have said the Department of Labor has paid up to 11 million and 42 million to domestic workers. Then the question will be, was the Department of Employment and Labor ready to pay up before the president announced the lockdown? That's my question. I thank you.
Thank you, Babushonga. Fedusa?
Thank you, Chairperson. Greetings to all fellow South Africans. I've just got a question also to Babu Nkosi from the Department of Labor. It concerns the employees which we've got, which are not receiving their benefits, which are due to them, the UIF, because of the employers who were not contributing on their behalf. How can they be best assisted in this regard? I saw that he did share some light, but we also need clarity as to how we can best assist the members. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you for this, Kosatu.
Thank you, Chair.
Just a second, Kosatu. I'm being advised, at least we saw for Dusa, I'm being asked that delegates, when you ask questions, please switch on your video. So that if you can do that, we saw for Dusa, but I think we missed Natu. Can we then, going forward, do that? Kosatu?
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, I think we have questions for both presenters. The presenter from the Department of Labor and Employment, and we also have a question for the Department of Economic Development, Asia. Firstly, Chair, we must really raise our grave concerns about how the issues of UIF are being handled. Currently, Chair, we must say that the department were very clear that as COSATU, the department must advertise how ordinary workers can access information as to how the UIF is paying workers and how the UIF really is working in terms of paying for employers that have applied. We are not happy really that the UIF has not done a proper advertisement in terms of how members who are not sure whether their employers have applied or how those members can apply directly to the UIF can do so. We believe that UIF is supposed to be very clear in terms of how workers can access whether their employers have applied on behalf of those members, and if those members have been paid, and what are the companies that have been paid in terms of the UIF disaster funds. And we want Comrade Chair to plead to the UIF here as we are engaging that the UIF must inform members how members can check if their companies have applied and if and what is the status of the application, and if their members have been paid or their employers have been paid or not been paid. If they have not been paid, what and what is pending, or if the employers have been paid, how much money per member has been paid to the company. This information is very crucial, Comrade Chair, and we want the UIF to tell our members how our members can access that information. If I am, as Mkhize, applied, or if my company has applied to my behalf and my company has been paid, how much money has been paid for my company to Mr. Mkhize. This information, Comrade Chair, must be available, and the UIF must come out clearly how ordinary workers can access this particular information. Thanks, Chair. Then the other issue, Comrade Chair, is on the EDGE, economic development. I think, Chair, we must sit down and engage. We think currently the initiatives that have been undertaken by the economic development really do not assist us as workers. As workers, we want to know, since the COVID-19 outbreak, what is our economic approach as South Africa at large? And what is our economic approach as KZN? We have been following the webinars on the economic recovery initiative. Our main concern, Comrade Chair, is that in those economic webinars initiatives, the approach that has been undertaken by the economic development is the approach that says how we can we resuscitate the very same economy that has failed us as South Africa. And we are calling for economic development that they must bring this issue to the Economic Council. Let us debate this issue, because we don't think that the economic or the economy of South Africa that has failed us during the apartheid era and the economic recovery that has failed us during the colonial era. In this COVID-19 is the same economic recovery that we must undertake as government or as progressive formations in South Africa. We want to say, let us have a discussion on what kind of economic recovery that we need as South Africa. What are the opportunities that are there caused by the COVID-19 that we can actually embark on as South Africa? So we want that particular discussion to come at the Economic Council, because we really don't agree how they've arrived to the economic recovery that they are embarking on as economic or as EDGE department on the economic recovery. So we think that maybe it's a clarity. What informs them on the economic recovery or the webinars that they've been running in the province of KZN to say what kind of economic recovery that we need, because we really don't think that we need to go back to those same institutions that have failed us to transform our economy as South Africa. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Joabe. Can I get an indication if we have any question from social network, our guys who are dealing with that? May we please, the language, sign language interpreter, we keep on losing them. Can they stay on the screen, please? We have questions from other sources.
Speaker, Honorable Chair.
Yes.
I don't know whether can you get me. It says here from producer. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yes.
Okay. I got a question here, Chair. I don't know whether my line can you get me clear.
She said, "Oh, to open the tab mirror."
No, to move the
okay. Go ahead, Kati, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Chair, my first question will go to the Labour Department and the thing which just shortly indicated to us that they have paid certain amounts to workers to fellow South Africans. The question is
sorry, Babu Ngobo, hold on a sec. Babu Ngobo.
I'm holding check.
Yeah, we were begging to hear you. We are begging to hear you.
Okay. Honorable Chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay. My question wanted to go to the presentation from one of the speakers from the Labour Department, and we had numerous complaints on both sides, we on the Labour side and the employers, that the accessibility of the TERS in respect of the application was not made very easy. And I want to find out from them if they've made any upgrades and any change to the system, and whether is our poor employees can be able to access the department and be able to go through with the claims. And the second part of my question is that we still have huge number of complaints of employees who are sitting and not knowing whether the claims have went through and they've received from the Labour side, and we still have employees who don't even have an access to internet or to any sort of such websites which we saw on media, and what sort of assistance they can offer in respect of our members and our workers in respect of being able to access the Labour Department during this time. And the other one is an issue of educating the members. I also have concern in respect of whether they have any thoughts of any form of educating our members and for employees, especially in the hospitality sectors, where we're expecting a large number of employees who are sitting at home now and don't even know where to go to and what to do, because you find that currently the companies are closed, currently shut down, the restaurants and the hotels, and the employers cannot be reached either. And what sort of plan of action can we come up with in respect of enforcement and ensuring that these funds are easily accessible to our people? I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Babu Ngobo. If we do not have questions that are emanating from social media, may I then request, most of the questions went to Babu Nkosi. May I request that Babu Nkosi comes back and respond. After him, we'll then ask acting HOD also to respond. I'm begging to see the interpreter as well. Can those who know how to bring her back do so on our behalf? Can we then ask Babu Nkosi to respond to the questions? Mostly questions were directed to him.
Thank you very much, Program Director. The first one was, I think, from NATO, relating to whether we were ready at the time when the President announced the lockdown period. To be honest, yes, at the time when it was announced, we were not ready, but I think we had about 2 days where we had to go and try to put measures in place and system in place and processes in place so that we are ready. But by the time, because it was announced on the 23rd, by the 26th or the 27th, we were ready. We created an email where everyone can submit their application. So by the time we started lockdown, we were ready, all system go at the time. The second one was from FEDUSA in terms of now employers that are not contributing to UIF. And I think we need to consider and understand and agree that this is a serious challenge that we are facing as UIF. Non-compliance by employers, where you find that employee has been working for the employer for a number of years. The employer, they did not contribute, neither declare the employee. But in this period that we are in now, we've got systems in place. The employer can still now declare that employee at on our website or our online platform, which is uFiling. It's www.ufiling.co.za. The employer can now declare the employee. In terms of contribution, you'll find that the employer contributed at SARS or only paid at SARS without informing UIF to say, listen, I have employees. With that one, as I indicated in my presentation, we have a relationship with SARS. If you see that we are not in our database, because we can't punish the employee for the wrongdoing of the employer. So what we do now, we then quickly go to SARS to confirm whether this employer has been paying or not. So if SARS confirms, even if we see that no, we are not on our system, as long as we know that we've been contributing, we continue with the payment, we pay the employee, and then we'll deal with the employer later in terms of the non-compliance. From COSATU, we receive, I think, a few questions. In terms of the advertisement, we do take the point, and we really recognize that we have not been doing it fully as we love to. And one of the challenges are that, for instance, television, you'll find that most production companies are closed. So you wouldn't have that production set done correctly so. But there is something that we are doing. There is radio advertisement that are running that we've procured sometime, I think it's 45 seconds on each radio station for us to advertise. And we are increasing those so that all radio stations, be it a community radio station, we do have a voice so that we reach all the employees. In terms of now of the access and how to check and also the status, I think that question was relating to access. What we've done, we have developed our system to automate a sending of a spreadsheet that contains a payment breakdown of employees to say, each employee, this is how much we are paying. Let's say we provide the employer with the sum of amount, be it 1 million or whatever it is. Now we break that 1 million down to say this 1 million consists of 5 rand for this employee, this amount for this employee, this amount from this employee. So it's there for the employer to see it. However, last week, seeing that employers are not really communicating to their employees, we have also added a functionality on our system where an employee now can go there with his or her ID number, enter the ID number, check the status. They will be able to check whether employer was paid, and if the employer was paid, how much was the employer was paid. Then the employee is able to now compare what was paid to the employer for her or for him and what the employer received in their bank account. So you're able to compare and do that sort of a mini reconciliation and able to see whether the employer was honest when the employer paid that amount. So those are the functionalities for the development or the enhancement that we've done on our systems. Now, the last question was relating now to the our process, our application process, that it sometimes becomes a cumbersome process. What we've done, remember when we started, it was an email where you will send an email and then we'll just process your application. It was more of a manual process. Now, we've automated the whole process. Now, the whole process is automated. It's an online portal, a web portal, where you just upload your files. We call it a CSV file with your employee details. You no longer, previously you used to manually sign the agreement. Now you do no longer manually sign the agreement. You just accept on the system. You just click accept on the system as the employer. So it's a very easy process. It can take you 10 or more minutes, depending on the number of employees that we have. But now we've really upgraded or improved our process with that regard. If now, I think the other question was relating to the last one that was from the COSA to say the employee can now know if their claims went through. They can go to our website, Department of Labor website, under online services, and they can check whether it was done. In terms of the internet now, or reaching everyone, firstly, with the internet, we had an agreement with Vodacom. So when you access our systems, that is zero rated. Vodacom or this service provider we do not charge you for accessing our platforms. It's zero rated. What we've also done so that we reach everyone, we have sent SMSs to the employers, especially those ones that are domestic workers and so forth. We've sent them messages, SMS, to say, if you've got this nice benefit, if you have an employee, please apply on that one. Another process that we've taken due to the lockdown and the regulations of the lockdown, we've said all of our labor centers, 126 labor centers, we have placed a drop box outside the labor center. So employees can go there and just leave their applications on that drop box. So our employees are now working to assess all the applications that we receive at this period. And another thing, we have also created a toll-free number for all employees, which is 0800 030 007. For now, if you are an employee, your employer is not talking to you, your employer is not giving you information, you can call this toll-free number, and we can give you information. We have about 500 call center agents there who are now answering these calls for you now to able to get answers. And also another thing is that our regional officials or colleagues are there. We've got their numbers. We can even give it to you. I know that you work well with Koko. All our officials are there. Their emails. We even created a specific email for the employees or our clients to reach us on that email, and then we'll be able to respond in that email. Chair, I think I've covered.
I was going to stop you anyway, Mr. Kosi.
Okay.
Thank you. I think you have answered the questions. I'm also going to suggest that our legislature staff put up the presentations on our media platforms, well as legislature, and the numbers as you put them. I was going to suggest that you have now answered. Rather, let's move on to another item. Thank you very much, Mr. Nkosi, for your responses. And if there were gaps, they would be followed up, obviously, because there would be other platforms. But I'm going to suggest that we put up the presentations and the toll-free numbers, the emails, also as legislature on our platform, so that workers can, those who are able to access them. Thank you very much, colleagues. The questions time is now finished. We are now going to go to the Federation's presentations. It's not really presentations. We have agreed with the Federations, and I'm going to be straight with time because it's times that we had agreed with them. The topic was really the role of labor representatives in ensuring accountability by government. Now I'm going to ask Mr. G. Hlongwa, Provincial Coordinator of NACTU, and Mr. Hlongwa, you have 4 minutes to make your own presentation. And your 4 minutes starts now, sir.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Please put on your video as well. Thank you.
I think it's on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chairperson, as NACTU, when we look at COVID-19, we saw a new way of life where number of workers were going to be affected in terms of this pandemic. Ever since it started, the economic of this country have seen a drop. And again, there are a number of employees that have lost jobs and some were retrenched due to this COVID-19. As NACTU, we have then said we need to work hard with the employers together and the government to assist in terms of educating our people in terms of how are we going to conduct ourselves from now onwards. Ever since the lockdown was announced by the president, NACTU National have put up a statement, media statement, to say that about 30% of jobs have been lost. Again, we are still expecting like 370,000 jobs to, jobs to be lost again. So all we are saying is we need to have some strategies to come up with in order to curb this pandemic. That's what we have prepared, Chairperson. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Natu. We are now going to ask Fedusa, 6 minutes. Mr. Singh, for 6 minutes, make your statement, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. I'm just doing a sound check. I've only just connected to the session now due to difficulties. Are we okay?
We can hear you. We can hear you. We can see you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Program Director, Honorable Premier KZN, Speaker of the KZN Legislature, esteemed members of the KZN Legislature, presiding officers and delegates of this Parliament, fellow workers, ladies and gentlemen, watching across the various media. Never in our lifetimes could we have envisaged the grinding halt of societal and economic activity. The fact is that it's now happened, and it now points us to the invisibility of novel coronavirus 19. Of all the workers at the front line of essential services and keeping our society running, there will be few who won't count the workers in the healthcare sectors as amongst the most important. Barron's 2020 points out that the South African healthcare workers would have a toll taken on their emotions due to the limited resources and triage decisions that need to be made in current COVID-19 context that engulfs us. Add to this our inequality as a society and the gap between public and private healthcare, we have a recipe for disaster. The Hastings Centre thus calls for clear rules that must be in place in times of public emergencies. Madam Speaker, we therefore implore upon government to fine-tune and refine triage protocols before we reach a level where tragic choices have to be made in respect of life and death. This intends to reduce moral distress in healthcare workers and mitigate any undesired consequences that are had on these workers should they break down. Nuru in 2020 found that South Africa's monetary tightening does see a decline in economic activity and also leads to decline in exchange rates. In addition, there is a finding of an accommodative stance between fiscal and monetary policy. Madam Speaker, this leads us to the assertion then that relaxations in monetary policy must be prioritized during these difficult times as the quickest way to put cash and spending power back into the hands of workers, with due cognizance of the fact that workers are clients of banks with many interest-bearing loans and other different forms of credit. We shudder to think that for 37 months prior COVID-19, economic data made for a compelling case for drastic rate cuts, and it took COVID-19 to get the ball rolling. We have to make up for that lost time in the face of this economic recession and massive job losses. The road ahead is indeed long. It is most unfortunate to hear of reports that UIF payments are being withheld by certain employees. Mr. Chulas Nesi has given this the contempt it deserves. Madam Speaker, we would like to see criminal action imposed on any breach in the UIF process, both upstream and downstream. In addition, regulations should be amended so that all benefits are paid directly into the hands of workers during this time, due to the dire situation on our people and their livelihoods. The corrupt nature of some employers will see them seeking to benefit at worker expense if we don't keep this in check. The 2008 financial crisis has taught the world many lessons, most important of which is that stimulus packages effectively sought to bail out the corporate world and very little benefit to workers. The stimulus plan announced by President Ramaphosa is most welcome. The social relief measures of 350 Rand a month is a lifeline to many of our people stripped of their dignity and humanity. It is hoped that this is the first step in a basic income grant. We must, however, ensure that monies granted to business are not a corporate rescue and bailout plan, meaning that any firm who retrenches during this time of COVID should never receive any bailouts or return such monies already received. Madam Speaker, it makes very little sense that business are given grants to save jobs but end up retrenching and shedding jobs. This also begs for a tightening of regulations in respect of Section 189 of the Labour Relations Act, to the extent that employers must exhaust all disaster relief provisions before dismissals directly due to COVID-19 and the impact on the economy are contemplated. It is understandable that many long-standing retrenchment plans are now being bulldozed through under the COVID-19 banner, and this is simply unacceptable. The magnitude of the challenge in reopening the economy has reared its head with the recent press conferences of the Minister of Basic Education. It is clear that the organized labour constituency would be lacking in its responsibility if it does not subject the utterances of the Minister a few weeks ago to serious interrogation. In addition, the Minister has invoked a lot of uncertainty in what is arguably our biggest congregation of people, that is a school. Much more needs to be considered before the education sector can even be assessing the readiness to open. We as organized labor commit to undertake to walk that journey in the best interests of our members and children. Madam Speaker, whilst organized labor welcomes the various promulgations in the short term, challenges are manifesting themselves and bound to emanate despite the best intentions of governments. Thus, in addition to the hundreds of labor inspectors the Department of Employment and Labor have deployed, be mindful that organized labor would also have a key stewardship role to play. Whilst this may be seen as an ideal terrain to harvest conflict between labor and government, the spirit is to hold government accountable, especially in the absence of any other authority having the mandate to uphold the right to life, as our Constitution guarantees that right to life. Thus, as a result, a great debate now ensues as to the balancing of the protection of and preservation of life versus the reopening of our economy. This will no doubt invoke many emotions. At the forefront in this battlefield are workers. The movement from level 5 to level 4 of the lockdown places organized labor in particular and society in general in a very difficult situation, because we are witnessing a drop in level of restrictions, yet there are increasing numbers of infections. It is clear that the balance between opening the economy and life is now going to be a very, very seriously contested area. Emmanuel and others in 2020 subscribe to what they term as the value of promoting and rewarding, instrumental value, which calls for the prioritization of...
Round off, Mr. Singh.
Emmanuel and others, thank you, Mr. Chair, subscribe to what they term as the value of promoting and rewarding instrumental value, which calls for prioritization of all essential and frontline workers that keep the economy and infrastructure going for treatment and medical care, as well as the allocation of scarce resources. We believe that such an approach will encourage these workers to continue working, especially in sectors that are short of personnel. The road ahead is long, uncertain, and very emotional at all times. We look forward to achieve the best outcomes for all our livelihoods. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Singh of Fedusa. May I now invite Mr. Mdlalose of COSATU. You have 10 minutes, sir.
Chair.
Yeah.
I think there's another presentation before Mr. Mdlalose.
There is not. Dwabe.
Yes.
Presentation.
Except if, because I think Fedusa is presented. We're supposed to have NAG2. If NAG2 forfeits its page, then we can have Mr. Mdlalose.
NAG2 started, Dwabe. They were the first.
Okay.
It was NAG2 for Diusa, then it's COSATU now.
Okay.
May we please have Babu Mdlalose, you have 10 minutes, sir. Is Babu Mdlalose still with us? If we still have Mr. Mdlalose.
Thanks.
No, thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you. Welcome back.
Yeah, some technical problems here. First and foremost, let us greet the workers of KwaZulu-Natal, the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, the Speaker, the leaders of the federations, members of the provincial legislature, and the viewers at home. As COSATU are actually welcoming the initiative that has been taken to say that given the context that actually affects the manner in which an ordinary workers' parliament would have taken place, we were able to actually devise innovative ways of holding this important sitting. We must also indicate that we're holding this workers' parliament wherein as workers were celebrating the Workers' Month, wherein workers in 1886 actually took it upon themselves to ensure that they reduce the hours of exploitation in the industries, wherein they were working more than 18 to 20 hours. But these workers were able to say enough is enough. 8 hours must actually be utilized for exploitation and actually part and parcel of ensuring that workers sustain themselves. We want to indicate that COVID-19 has demonstrated to all of us as workers that firstly, the importance of public service workers has never been of vital importance than ever before. That their importance, as opposed to the neoliberal approach on downsizing the public service, that public service workers have actually displayed their enormous importance to fight this particular pandemic. It has been actually proven that the public service is in the forefront. The public service is needed more than ever before. That workers in the public service are actually important. They must be multiplied. They must be increased. They must be supported. They must be safe in the context of compliance with the Occupational Health and Safety Act, as it has been said. We indicated our affiliates in the main have been in the forefront in ensuring that our workers do have personal protective equipment. Our workers do not actually contract this particular virus while in the forefront of protecting other workers and other citizens of our country. Acknowledging that, we also acknowledge the fact that the workers in the public health component are not actually sufficient enough to actually perform these tasks in terms of their numbers. That is why, as COSATU, have supported our affiliates to say that more workers should be recruited, as opposed to incorporating volunteers, incorporating students. More health workers need to be employed to actually fight this pandemic. Not only fighting this pandemic, but ensuring that we improve our healthcare system as we are gearing up in the implementation of the National Health Insurance. It's a question that had always been there, with or without COVID-19, that our health system needs to improve. So we're caught up with this pandemic to say that more needs to be done. But in the main, we need to do more. Among other things that we have identified as a problem is that we have been making noise about the implementation of the National Health Insurance. This was supposed to be an opportunity, among other things, to ensure that you incorporate the implementation of the National Health Insurance as a universal instrument to ensure that systems are in place, the infrastructure in our healthcare centers is actually in place, improve the infrastructure, ensure that there is universal access to quality healthcare. With or without COVID-19, we would have been more ready than we are today if we actually speeded up the process of implementing the National Health Insurance. It is as part of the interventions. That is why we are saying that our government, national and provincial, has actually downplayed the question of a danger allowance, because these so-called frontliners, these workers who are actually exposed more than anyone else towards this COVID-19, are actually risking and sacrificing their lives. They are sacrificing their lives for the protection of millions of lives. As things stand, more than 2 million people have actually passed away. Among these are workers. Among these are workers in the health sector, in the private sector, especially in the retail sector. These workers are vulnerable more than anyone else. We believe that the question of the danger allowance should be applicable. These workers should be compensated for risking their lives and in ensuring that they save other lives. We believe that that's part of our demands as COSATU, to say that it must be resuscitated. If they pass away, there should be a reimbursement. If they get infected based on their involvement in discharging their responsibilities, they must be actually compensated. We are going to campaign for that. We are going to ensure that these billions that are being organized, these billions that are being sourced to elevate this particular pandemic, they should be actually be used to reimburse these workers. On the question of personal protective equipment, we have seen that some people are taking advantage of this problem. They are actually making profit out of that. They're taking this as an opportunity for self-enrichment, an opportunity for self-aggrandizement, an opportunity to ensure that they inflate prices on the basis of making more profit, multiplying profit, using this particular unfortunate situation to enhance their personal life. So that's an unfortunate part that needs to be addressed, that needs to be confronted by all partners involved. But at the same time, we've come to realize that some of the workers, especially in the security industry, security officers in the main, are not actually given protective clothing. They are not actually protected in terms of hygiene and all of those things. So we are making a call that our government must look into that. And we're making a call that this is not only about the private sector, it's about the government, our own government, in ensuring that it actually disciplines the private sector to ensure that it complies with the regulations. So that's the fundamental point that we are making. And that, among other things, which we see as opportunities given the COVID-19 question, is that this should have actually given us an opportunity to ensure that we improve the infrastructure in our schools, in our schooling system. Because our schooling system, there was an articulation that says our country is divided into two nations, but it was corrected to say that no, we're having one nation under capitalist mode of production, which aggrandizes other class forces at the expense of other class forces. So even in our public sector systems, you come to realize that there's a public sector for the poor and there's a public sector for the enriched. So we have to be sincere. For a person, for pupils who are learning in rural areas where there is no water and sanitation, where there's no running water and sanitation, it relates with the opening or not opening the schools. It talks to our fundamental spatial underdevelopment that had always been there. We should not act like surprised to realize that there's a school that does not have running water, to realize that there's a school that does not have sanitation facilities. So we need to be saying this has been a wake-up call. It raises many questions to say that we need to go back and address those questions in order to ensure that the infrastructure is up to scratch for these poor pupils to when they return to school, they are actually catered for, even the educators, the teachers themselves. And you speak here about the vulnerability of young people who are at primary schools, who cannot be able to actually protect themselves. So it's a question of many facets of many other things that need to be looked into. And these learners in rural areas do not have access to e-learning. There is a backlog now. Those who are in urban areas are able to have access to e-learning, but those in rural areas do not have infrastructure, do not have access to all of those gadgets to actually access education. So it talks directly to the contradictions that the National Democratic Revolution sought to address: the question of race, racial contradictions, the question of class contradictions. They are part and parcel, they are a backbone of what we're actually experiencing now. We need to sort that out. We need to
2 minutes,
improve
Chairperson.
our health system.
2 minutes, Chair.
By way of conclusion, we understand that there has been an expression that there are informal workers in the informal sector, which we believe that they are not catered for in the billions that are being actually organized to assist them. We have workers who are actually not registered by the construction industry, workers who are not registered in many sectors of our economy, who are actually self-employed. Others are doing hairdressing. Others are actually self-employed in the context of spaza shops. These workers are not catered in these particular arrangements in the form of billions. How do you then zoom in ensuring that the entire informal sector is catered in? And we must again delve on explaining as to where are we coming from with the expression called an informal sector. Why is it informalized? What is the relationship with the so-called formal sector and the informal sector? And we need to be seen saying, in zooming into that, broadly address our economic inequalities, address unemployment, because currently we are speaking about already 11 million of our people who are already unemployed. How are they surviving while quarantined? How are they surviving while actually complying with the national regulation? So these are the questions that we need to look into. That is why on the 27th of May, we'll be going to the vulnerable sectors and communities as COSATU and other federations with the legislature to actually intervene in those areas in the economic sectors where we have come to realize that they have been isolated, they are more vulnerable than other sectors. But that should be a question that is structural, that is part and parcel of the provincial economic growth path. That is a part and parcel of ensuring that, among other things, when we say we are talking about economic recovery, we talk about reindustrialization, beneficiation of whatever natural resources that we have as a province, in ensuring that we create more employment. Our growth should be actually job creating. The path of our economic growth should be actually informed by creating more and more jobs. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Nyanda, for your input. It is now my single honor to invite our provincial premier to address the Workers' Parliament. He will obviously touch on some of the issues that have been raised by the workers. I now invite Honorable S. Zigalala, the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, to talk to the workers in their parliament today. Honorable Zigalala, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Boys, Chairperson of this session, Honorable Sonjita, leaders of the opposition parties, and the main or the official opposition, Honorable Hlabisa, honorable members of the KZN legislature, representatives of labor and various federations, compatriots and workers in all workplaces. We extend our greetings to all of you
We're very grateful for allowing us an opportunity to participate at this Workers' Parliament convened at this critical time of uncertainty due to unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic, which continues to disrupt every aspect of our life, from healthcare system to all economic and social activities. Globally, the world of work has profoundly been impacted by this pandemic. The irony of us engaging in this Workers' Parliament, contrary to the traditional way, as we now engage socially in a social distance way, means and reflects that not all is lost. We should continue even under this situation to advance the interest of all sectors of our society. We are in this new struggle of combating the outbreak of COVID-19, where the safety of our citizens and the sustainability of business and jobs must be protected at all costs. As a nation whose freedom was hard-won in a protected struggle, we can never doubt our resilience and sacrifice to overcome this life-threatening challenge. At the heart of our battle, as even before, are the workers. As we speak, many are engaged in the frontline combat against this pandemic. It is therefore important to applaud this legislature for taking time to honor and appreciate our workers throughout our province and the country at large, who are at the front line of the struggle against COVID-19. It should be understood that workers who are in the struggle against COVID-19 are not only those who are in the healthcare work only, but almost all sectors of the economy and aspects of the economy are affected, and the workers of our country need that protection. We pay tribute to all workers from the healthcare sector to every cashier at the supermarket or a retail store, from a petrol attendant to the security personnel, all of whom continues to work despite the risk they are exposing themselves, and despite the fact that they might also contract the same virus. We salute nurses in all our institutions on this historic day of Nursing International Day, who are in the front line changing and being in charge of nursing the world against this critical pandemic. As a province, we owe our mandate and achievement to the workers of KwaZulu-Natal. It is the workers that are a driving motive force, the primary motive force that make our province grow and our economy develop. As COVID-19 continues to inflict an untold damage in the field of work and the economy, we look upon our workers to once again contribute in the reconstruction and development of the economy and the health of our society. Critically, at the center of the reconstruction and development of the economy post-COVID-19 should be the role and space occupied by workers themselves. We understand the work and the struggle between the employer and the employee will always be defined by the struggle and by the unit and the struggle of the opposite. But workers must understand that the reconstruction of the economy rests in their shoulders as well. We are resolute as the ANC-led government that the rebuilding and the stimulation of the economy post this pandemic should reflect the economic growth, distribution, and the creation of jobs. Ours is not to sustain the status quo of a system that is highly monopolized and concentrated in the hands of the few. We remain conscious that the structure of the economy has prolonged the challenge of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. For the workers of our soil and the people in general to enjoy freedom that they should at workplace, the reconstruction and stimulation of the economy should and will be meaningless if it does not mean addressing the structure of the economy. If it does not mean addressing the abhorrent inheritance of the colonial apartheid system, I have no doubt that this will not happen without a vigorous, radical economic transformation. We need a radical economic transformation in every aspect of the economy. And the radical economic transformation should be informed about a desire to grow the economy, open it up so that many people participate in all sectors of the economy, but create decent jobs for workers of our province and our country. Madam Speaker, honorable leaders of our unions and federations, sectoral parliaments like this one, focusing on the well-being of the workers as our primary force for fundamental and radical transformation, cannot just be platform for mere compliance and box ticking. We believe, Madam Speaker, that all resolutions taken in the previous parliament should be followed. And for that, we have, as the Executive Council, develop a comprehensive response on the work that each department has done in implementing the resolutions taken in the previous year Workers' Parliament. I will, however, take an opportunity to address few of the resolutions that emerge in that Workers' Parliament. In the interest of time, we have also provided a detailed report to all members of this Parliament so that they will understand where are we in the implementation of the resolutions. One of the fundamental departments in KwaZulu-Natal, especially when it comes to the creation of jobs and the growth of the economy, is the Department of Agriculture. The Department of Agriculture was mandated in the last Workers' Parliament to monitor the capacity of the department and to ensure that the programs they are running are meeting intended beneficiaries who should receive the assistance as required. This clearly means that when we talk about mechanization, the department should be the capacity to understand that people who are supplied by fertilizers and all implements are intended beneficiaries. In its response, the department wished to report that it has developed a tool of reporting on services rendered to its client. Client receiving production input, mechanization services, or any other support are now required to confirm the receipt of such services, firstly by signing the report, but secondly by keeping on updating the department on how they are progressing in terms of their production. This is the control that services are not directed to one and the same people, but also spread to people of KwaZulu-Natal as a whole. In doing this, extension officers who are servicing communities at ward level now have a responsibility of servicing everyone regardless of the position or status of the client. If there are any cases of irregularities, community members are encouraged to report such cases for investigation. The department has an internal control session which is assisting in identification of risk and other potential threats. We stand here, Honorable Chair, with confidence that the Department of Agriculture, with all challenges that it has experienced before, is on a correct path to ensure that it provides meaningful intervention to the people of KwaZulu-Natal, both especially the commercial farmers as well as those who are upcoming farmers, but more importantly, to our people who are engaged in farming so that they will sustain their livelihood. We would also want to emphasize that in the space of agriculture, we would want to see our people getting more united. That's why we are working with now all organizations from SAFTA to KwaNalu and others. Progressing to the Department of Arts and Culture, one of the resolutions taken was that the department need to develop a capacity of ensuring that it market and ensure financial management for our artists. It is known that our artists need to be marketed, but they need also to be assisted in terms of ensuring that they look after their own affairs. History has taught us the painful experiences where our artists end up being no one in the society. And in response to this, the department has devised a program to address artist management training needs through its 4 regions, through innovative education and consulting program. This program addresses key art management issues, which include artistic planning, marketing, fundraising, and management. By investing in art management training for small and medium-sized arts organizations, the department is now helping to secure the future of these organizations, but also of individual artists. With regard to the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, one of the resolutions in connection with the awarding of bursaries to students was raised. And this, therefore, the department have taken up this. But in implementing this resolution, the department have applied both approach, the creation of jobs, but also ensuring that we provide financial support to students to further their education. It is with pleasure to report to this House that unemployed youth graduates are now participating in the Department of Culture's internship program, where they are acquiring work experience and thus building on the content of their CVs. Similarly, a database of unemployed bursary graduates have been developed to ensure that those who are not yet absorbed are also phased in, but also use other departments to ensure that all people who have been trained by government and those academics who have been, those who have qualified from our tertiary institutions are absorbed into workplace. In addition, the department has most recently placed 500 graduates into municipalities. And I'm sure that colleagues and compatriots will attest that they've seen us launching this program and rolling it down to build the capacity of municipalities. These are unemployed graduates who are now enlisted to support our municipalities in financial management, human resource management, but some are even coming to technical services such as infrastructure and others. With regard to the Department of Community Safety and Liaison, one of the resolutions from this forum was that the department need to relook at demarcations and introduce more satellite police stations with the required and necessary resources for effective policy. I must say, members of this parliament will concur that in our previous SOPA, we emphasize a need of improving policy. Currently, the department has reported that investigations are already being conducted to determine the feasibility of realigning police boundaries and the establishment of additional service points to bring services closer to communities. This will include establishment of satellite police stations and mobile community services centers that are under SAPS. There are now 6 satellite police stations and 3 fully fledged police stations that are approved for the implementation, which are currently on the capital work list. To date, 46 satellite police stations have been established, 13 mobile CSCs have been implemented, and 65 feasibility studies have been conducted and approved, but are yet to be examined in terms of resources and accommodation. So the work of improving policing and bringing closer police services to the people is underway and is continuing, honorable members. With regard to the Department of the Education, one of the resolutions taken by the last year's Workers' Parliament was the devastating effect of austerity measures that are put in place, leaving the department with at least 70% of vacancies, especially at a lower level. Since then, working with the Premier's Office and the MEC for Finance, the department is working on filling the post. 342 funded posts have been advertised already. Some have already been filled, with others are still being in a process. As of April this year, 70% of all advertised vacant posts were filled by the department. And therefore, would want to work with unions, especially in the education sector, to ensure that we build the capacity of the education sector and deliver. The more critical work here is not in the management, but it is to ensure that there are sufficient teachers in our schools who will continue to support our learners. We take a view, and the point that has been raised here, that workers are the most who are suffering, especially the workers and the poor, are suffering during this time. It is well known that learners, especially the learners of the working class and the poor, are unable to benefit during this time, while those who are studying in schools that are highly resourced are able to access learning services even now. We will implore on the department to continue looking on means of speeding and expediting the process of providing technological support and equipment to our schools, even the rural schools. But this is not only the educational matter, it is the community issue now. The issue of connectivity has become one of those that are now more necessary than before. With regard to the Department of Health, the Workers' Parliament resolved that the department should fast-track the filling of vacant posts and the finalization of its norms and standards. It was recommended that the process should be fair and transparent. Labor unions should participate. The department, in implementing this work, has reported that minimum staff establishment has already been developed, and once approved, the posts are being filled. The minimum staffing establishment was presented to the Executive Council, and it was endorsed, and it has been now referred to a stage where we finalize resources that are necessary and needed. I must hasten to report on this, that due to the constraint, especially of clinicians, we have taken a view that we are going to add more, especially on doctors and nurses. As a result of that, we are working on a 6-month contract that will be advertised soon to employ more nurses, so that we are able to build our capacity to confront the challenge of this pandemic, the COVID-19. With regard to the Department of Human Settlement, one of the resolutions of this forum is that the department need to make a follow-up as whether the contractors do pay their workers at the end of the day. Now, it is the struggle. We, government, need to ensure that, firstly, we pay and pay on time. But secondly, we need to ensure that workers who are employed by these contractors are also paid. The department has assured us that the implementing agents and contractors are being provided with necessary data collection tool to ensure that they report on the information for beneficiary payments. Contractors then submit the data collection to the data collection tool on monthly basis on the progress they are making. And therefore, we expect that all our workers are also, all workers employed by contractors are equally paid. With regard to the EPWP, we're also monitoring that all EPWP employees are paid. The process of monitoring also includes data collection tool and ensure that all beneficiaries report through that tool, and then the report get escalated to the minister and to the MEC and to the national level. With regard to our own department, the Office of the Premier, one of the resolutions from this forum was urging us to monitor the recruitment process in the entirety of the government departments and the local government to ensure that gender equity is achieved. We can report with no doubt and hesitation. We cannot hesitate. Today, we can report that gender equity is one of the primary principles, and it is one of the key performance indicators that we account on. To date, 4 of our departments at a provincial level have more than 50% of females employed. But also, all other departments have more than 40% of females in senior management level. And therefore, there is progress. I must hasten to say, as KwaZulu-Natal, we are not happy with the number of HODs, the balance when it comes to HODs. And that's one of the areas that we will be paying attention to, so that we balance the equity, gender equity at all levels. Regarding the Department of Public Works, one of the resolutions from this forum was that the department need to ensure that recipients of contracts in the public service are compliant with all labor laws and regulations. The department has assured us that all contract appointments, including interns, are made in line with the existing regulations as well as legislation as determined by the Department of Public Service and Administration. The Department of Social Welfare was tasked to ensure that it increased the number of vehicles so that its fleet is in line with the staff establishment to ensure that the department's mandate is met on the ground. A particular concern was raised about the type and the compatibility of vehicles provided by the department. The department has assured us that it now continues to procure new vehicles every financial year. And in our report, we detail the vehicles that have been purchased so far. 2017-18, about 78 vehicles. 2018-19, 133 vehicles. And then we'll continue to ensure that we monitor that vehicles are provided. But also I must relate that one of the setbacks in this department and in other departments, it's a new thing that we've seen emerging, where state vehicles will be stolen, and stolen in numbers. In one department, you will get more than 10 vehicles. I cannot also forget to report about a very, very sad story of vehicles belonging to this department that were set alight in Ladysmith when there was a community protest. And therefore, we believe that all of us, including the labor, as well as civic organization, should implore on our communities to ensure that when they demonstrate their anger, their frustration, they do not destroy what we have achieved. What we have achieved needs to be protected, then we must advance for what we need. As for the Department of Sports and Recreation, one of the tasks that was raised was to ensure that we promote sports in schools by clustering schools and provide facilities. We can report that work is ongoing in addressing and ensuring that the existing school sports system is integrated and well aligned. We are addressing an uncoordinated silos that are there, and want to ensure that all sporting activities, whether public schools or formal molds, are well aligned and talk to each other. And the Department of Education and the Department of Sports and Culture, of Sports and Recreation, are working together in this regard. Madam Speaker and honorable members, it is clear from these few examples and the exhaustive report that we've presented that the manner in which we treat as government, we treat resolutions of this forum and other parliaments is, of course, giving attention to the sector itself. We do commit that we will continue improving and monitoring the implementation of all resolutions, including the resolutions from this engagement that have taken place today. This approach of sectoral engagement proves that our systems of engagement are working because all sectors and all groups are able to make meaningful input in the policies of our government and in individual departmental work. We will therefore continue to ensure that we take and treat this platform as one of the critical platforms, and that's why we were listening from the beginning and even when all unions were speaking, and that's why we value the cooperation we have with the labor but all other sectors of our society. Honorable Chair, allow me to briefly reflect on what many of our speakers have engaged with. The impact of COVID-19. COVID-19 will have an indelible, however, negative impact to the economy, especially because various sectors of the economy have been affected. But in terms of the overall growth of the economy, estimates by several analysts on the impact of COVID-19 indicate that the economy is going to contract, and the contraction will be between 5.8 to 10%. It is known that the South African Reserve Bank has projected a 6.1 decline. At the same time, due to the impact of COVID-19 on tourism, KwaZulu-Natal is going to have its own economy shrinking. And we estimate that the economy of the province will shrink by at least 8%. Unemployment rate it's well known and registered that even before the COVID-19, we were approaching 30%, and KwaZulu-Natal was at 27%. And this is one of the challenges that we're still going to live with. Absorption of new entry or entries into the labor market is also expected to fall due to structural rigidities associated with hiring of labor due to lockdown, but due to the fact that number of companies have experienced a decline in terms of the production. The macroeconomic stability has been severely affected. Macroeconomic instability will persist for a long time. Exchange rate depreciation is going to impact on us, as it expected that it will be between 15 to 18%. But also, trade, export and import is expected to decline. The GDP too will be declining. So we need to focus on stimulating the economy and ensure that all sectors of the economy are growing. Agriculture already is suffering and it's expected to contract by 9%. Mining and quarry will be also contracting, it's expected by 1.9%. Manufacturing, which is a backbone of employment, is expected to contract by 7.5%. Now, I think it has been highlighted that the severely affected industry is tourism, with all hospitality sectors, your hotel, restaurants, and others becoming one or among those that are going to be hugely affected. The creative industry, our artists and various people in the art and culture are also going to go through serious challenges. And therefore, we present this to plead with the labor that let us work together to rebuild the economy. We have had some interventions that were started as government. We started fighting the spread of the virus, setting up structures. We also moved to ensure that we enforce regulations. We also moved to cushion SMMEs as well as the industries, the whole. We have also commenced with the economic recovery plan, and there are a number of interventions that have been announced by the national government, including the National Disaster Relief Grant, the National Solidarity Fund, the Tourism Fund, Small Business Support Fund, IDC COVID-19 Fund, and other support measures that our national government have put in place. As the provincial government, we have also made some interventions. KwaZulu-Natal entities, especially our special economic zones, waive the payment of rent by their tenants affected by COVID-19 for at least 3 months. Provincial Department finance institutions, the KZN Growth Fund and Itala Development Finance Corporation also approved 6-month payment holiday without penalty and interest. Now, all of these, I must indicate, are not just that people are not going to pay, but they will pay, but it is that they can pay in a staggered way. Now, we'll do all of this to ensure that we support the business sector to continue operating various industries. We've also set up a one-stop shop that was there, but in that one-stop shop, we set up a call center, and we'll continue to monitor the request of support that are coming from that platform. We've also started an aggressive approach of supporting our farmers in the agricultural sector with input, including seeds and fertilizer and all other support they need. We've also, through the RASET program, ensured that those who have produce are supported by logistics, but also by the market, so that their products will also have the market even during this time. Now, a lot we've done to cushion and try to protect our people from severe impact that they would have experienced due to this. Now, as we go forward, we're working on a holistic plan to ensure economic recovery. As alluded before, work streams are taking place led by the Department of Economic Development, and also there are webinar sessions, and those webinars will provide us with information from labor, experts in sectors of the economy, practitioners, academics, but also affected business individuals, and that information will be collated and then consolidated to ensure that we've got a well-informed economic recovery plan that has an input and a contribution from all our sectors. Now, having said that, two critical pillars are crucial for economic recovery. The first is infrastructure development. As government, we've identified infrastructure development as one of the key pillars for reconstruction and the development of the economy going forward. This is because infrastructure development is a catalyst for faster economic growth, but it also creates employment and alleviates poverty. We all know of the high economic growth rate between 2004 to 2007, which was partly because of infrastructure development. But infrastructure development also leading to 2010 also proved that it is an anchor of economic growth. And therefore, we will be leading with programs that are of infrastructure development led by government, but also some from the private sector. But we will also want to see the promotion of SMMEs and entrepreneurs, small entrepreneurs in that space. We are also the second part or the second pillar of economic stimulation or reconstruction of the economy will be industrialization and localization. As supply chains are disrupted globally, nations will focus on feeding their own using local production. Our over-reliance on import now need to come to an end and we need to ensure that we focus on production and localization in the country. This should start at a level of health protection equipment. Pharmaceutical companies must be established, especially by the state. Electronics must be produced locally, but various sectors must begin to say, how are we going to work on localization and industrialization with both an intention of ensuring that we substitute imports, but we create more jobs. Such an approach should also value the importance of Africa and the importance of our own country as the market, and therefore balancing the openness of the imports and the tariffs we impose with a need of growing the domestic production. We're not agitating for any protectionism approach, but we are saying let us strike the balance. And having said so, we believe that the growth of the economy must also replicate to small industries. And therefore, we will be focusing on ensuring that small industries as well as traders are also supported. This will include informal traders. They need to be supported. Part of the support will be in terms of incentives, and part of the support will be in terms of non-financial support, including mentoring and ensuring that companies are supported. We are going to ensure that we strengthen social partnership we've developed over the years. Value the contribution of the labor and the economy, the business sector, and therefore, as we're going forward with easing the lockdown, we need to work together on the programs and measures to protect workers. We're now on stage 4. When we go forward, we need to ensure that protective measures that have been put in place must be followed by each and every company. PPEs must be provided. Social distancing must be preserved and adhered to in all areas. The labor will be critical in monitoring that. As we speak, COVID-19 has shown us that our healthcare workers, our police, our soldiers, and even our correctional officials remain vulnerable to the threat as they have been also infected. And therefore, we need, while we are agreeing that we must balance the economic interest with health and well-being of our people, protection of workers need to be prioritized. We extend our sympathies to all those who have lost their life during this pandemic. Also wish to salute the workers and all unions for being there, not only during the Workers' Month, but for guiding us in the struggle of the workers. And for that we say, workers of the world unite. We have nothing to lose but to win. We as government will continue to agitate for pro-poor developmental state and continue to listen to all sectors. Where we have made mistakes, we will never hide our own shortcomings, but instead, we will present and report openly, and we will, where even we have not acknowledged our mistake, remain open for constructive criticism. It was the working class that was at the forefront of the struggle for the attainment of freedom, democracy, and justice. And we depend on the working class to continue execute the struggle even in this current phase. It is the working class that declared that the people shall govern in the Freedom Charter. And therefore we are saying, side by side with the workers of this land, we want significant victories for our vulnerable people. We should continue in the same manner going forward. It is not time to critique each other, but it is time where we need to unite and close hands. It is time that we must save jobs and rebuild the economy of our country. We therefore wish to thank all of those who have participated in this Workers' Parliament. We cannot return back and we cannot stand here and lament. Let us go forward and soldier on as compatriots who are fighting for the betterment of all in our province. Together we must fight for the national health insurance. Together we must fight for pharmaceutical company that will be owned by the state. And this is the work that is on our shoulders as government, but also it is the work that our leaders in the labor must continue to advance at all times. Allow me, Honorable Chairperson, to thank all participants, to thank you for guiding this session so well. Recently, on the 10th of May, we remembered President Nelson Mandela's inauguration speech, where he said, "Let there be work, bread, water, and salt for all. Let freedom reign." Again, we say, compatriots, it is in our hands. Together, let us create our common future and grow KwaZulu-Natal and South Africa as a whole. We should, however, not forget our struggle is intertwined with the struggle of the people of the world as a whole. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Premier. And I think you gave very comprehensive responses to the resolutions. I must hasten to say, when we were in the planning for this parliament, we had agreed with the unions that the resolutions of today would be worked out, not in today's meeting, and then they would be sent through to the legislature, and then we will then forward them to the executive for responses. That's one. The last thing that I want to also mention is that we acknowledge that members of the public have been sending questions. We are unable to respond to them, but we undertake that we will respond to all the questions that were sent by the public. The team of the Triple P committee, they are collecting all those information. They will be sent to relevant departments for responses, and then the public I want to assure them that we will certainly respond to every one of them who have sent a question to us. I do not have liberty of time. I'm going to ask quickly Honorable Kaluza, who's our Deputy Chief Whip, to give a vote of thanks. I'm also pressed for time. Members will be aware that we had agreed about certain things, and other people need to join other meetings as we speak. Honorable Kaluza, I'm not going to come back. I just wish to thank all of you and wish you stay safe with you and your families, but also let's all work on making sure that those who are in the forefront of fighting this virus are protected. I'm going to then allow Honorable Kaluza to give a vote of thanks, and we allow members to take leave and join other meetings. Honorable Kaluza.
Chairperson, before Honorable Kaluza, please.
Yes, Babu Mkezi.
Yes, Chair. Chair, I think firstly let's welcome all the presentations, and also allude that we have agreed that we will allude in bullet points on areas of resolutions. Remember, we have 5 minutes for resolutions. We'll allude on areas of resolutions in bullet points to reflect what resolutions that we are going to take are going to cover. Are we still allowed to do so?
I'm only working on what was agreed in our preparatory meetings, which is not part. That's why I summed up that my understanding of the meetings was that the resolutions will then be between federations and us and the legislature will be worked out so that we then take them to the relevant executive in government for responses. So that's why I was closing on that note, Nopal.
Yes, because I think we do have 5 minutes to reflect on what resolutions are going to cover for the rest of the participants to know that when we come up with the resolutions, what is it that resolutions are going to cover, Chairperson?
If you insist, no, Bala, because it was not part of the program, because it would mean all the federations will then have to come back, but it's not. That's why I was timing people, because there was issue of time, and we were way beyond the time that was agreed.
Okay.
It's your meeting. At the end of the day, it's your meeting as federations. If that you feel strongly about it, I'm going to allow it.
Okay. No, thank you, comrade. Thank you, Chairperson. I think we have agreed that the resolutions are going to cover the following areas. One is the issue of the informal traders, the plight of the informal traders under the COVID-19 situation. What are the really available means to assist the informal traders during the COVID-19? The second issue that we also want to cover is a joint effort together with all social partners to fight against retrenchments during the or under the COVID-19, because we know that really many companies are opting for retrenchments, and some of the companies are using retrenchments or are using COVID-19 as a reason for retrenchments. And what we think that together as social partners, we must really engage on to fight against retrenchments. The other issue is the issue of the job creation, to deal with the issue of what are the available means or what are options under the challenge that we are facing to actually create jobs and prevent job losses. The other issue, Chairperson, is the participatory democracy, where we are saying we need to deal with the issue of training, ensuring that our grassroots are trained on the available platforms for engagement, on also engaging the network companies on the available means for communication under the situation, the situation we are facing and the conditions we are facing, and also to ensure that there is accessibility of these platforms for the grassroots to engage, so that we are able to make sure that everybody is part of the engagement, is part of ensuring that participatory democracy does take place. Yes. The other issue is the issue of ensuring the health and safety workplace in terms of the provision of the PPEs, the UIF payment, and what are the recourse workers have to challenge employers that do not want to apply for workers to have payment. And also the issue of the frontline workers, the support of the frontline workers, the issue of fighting against corruption, education, economy, because we want to engage as well as labor to say what kind of economy we want to achieve as we are faced by the issue of the pandemic, and also the issue of the ensuring that the implementation of the minimum wage does take place. So we are saying that those are issues of resolutions that are going to be engaged on and ensure that we do have resolutions on all these areas, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Mkhize. Can I plead, colleagues? I'm really, as I'll allow everyone to speak the whole day, I'm pressed for time, and I'm also using what we had agreed before this meeting. Can I allow Honorable Kaluza, the Deputy Chief Whip of the Legislature, to say a word and thank everyone who participated in the meeting. Honorable Kaluza.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson of PPE, Honorable Sonjika. Greetings to the Speaker of the Legislature, Umama Unothemba Boyce. Greetings to the Premier of our province, Ubaba Uzigalala, and the Leader of the Official Opposition, Ubaba Uhlabisa. Sibingelele ngokhulu ukuzithoba kona wonke amalunga esishamthetho saKwaZulu-Natal. Sibingelele ama-federations ngokuhlukana kwawo nama-delegates. Indeed, Chair, this is one of the hardest period faced by the world, but more so by workers who are hardest hit by this pandemic. Every time, Slalo, we pass by hotels, restaurants, and all our favorite sports, we cannot but not realize that every time we see them closed, our factories, this is a reminder, Yoguti, closure to those establishments are imminent. And it is one of those reminders, eziti, abobaba nabomama, osisi nobhuti bethu, some of them are going to be without work. And currently some of them are without an income. And it is a result of this pandemic. And we truly appreciate Uguti, Namhlanje, the federations have taken time, even though the situation is abnormal, they have taken time to realize and said, Uguti, the voice of the workers must be heard. We know, Uguti, even last year we did not have a workers' parliament due to the national elections. And this year, again, it was interrupted by the pandemic that we are facing. But the federations themselves have taken initiative to say the voices of workers must remain in place. It must be heard. And we really appreciate what has been done. But equally, we appreciate the office of the Speaker in the legislature, who has ensured, Uguti, even though we are in an abnormal situation, we must still continue with the programs that we had committed to have. Chairperson, we must equally send a word of gratitude to the Premier of our province for availing himself. We understand today, Uguti, it's very difficult. He's quite very busy with the executive, but he has taken time out and ensured Uguti participates in the program of the legislature. Chair, we must equally extend our word of appreciation to the legislature staff who ensured that the program of today is a success. We must equally extend the most gratitude to our labor federations for accepting that beyond the abnormal situation, the voice of workers must and continues to be heard. We know, Uguti, some of the resolutions might not have been implemented thus far, but it is an appeal to say, let us work together in ensuring that we hold the executive to account on the resolutions that were taken previously. Chair, siyabonga kakhulu on behalf of the KZN legislature. Sibonga kakhulu kwabalalelile in the various media platforms. And though we did not manage to respond to the questions that were raised in those platforms, but I am sure that through your office, Chair, we will be able to ensure that we respond to each and every question that has been raised. We appeal also in closure, Chair, to say our citizens must continue to adhere to the lockdown regulations and ensure that they continue to stay at home. And if it's a must that they need to then leave their homes, they need to ensure that they continue to observe social or physical distancing. We know it's not easy, but we are appealing that we do as much as we can to ensure that we flatten the curve so that we quickly get out of the situation that has found the world in an unplanned circumstance. Siyabonga kakhulu on behalf of the legislature on tuning in we commit to ensure that we will follow up and make sure that the resolutions that are taken are implemented. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kaluza, and thank you very much to everybody at home who was watching us. As we say, it's abnormal, but we must make it work. We must still get the public to participate in our daily work. So we're all learning how to do things differently. So I'm going to thank you and thank the team led by our Legislature Secretary, Ms. Naidu, all the work and the effort that you made this sitting possible today. We thank you and stay safe. Goodbye.
Thank you, Chair. Goodbye.
Thank
you and bye.